The Canterlot Independent Art Gallery had seen bigger crowds, but it certainly has seen smaller ones too. All in all, Rarity thought a delightfully crazy turnout. Ponies of all walks of life strolled in from the bright gas-lit streets of Canterlot, though most of the alfacondos of the obscure art of oil painting, they huffed as they came into the warm air, brushed the light her half-swarming snow from their coats and hats. They headed over to a table to sign the guest book. Rich Koltanov played gently on the huge gramophone in the corner of the studio, and two ponies, the white dinner jackets served in hot spice wine and fine cheese atop hard, crisp crackers. The little hall was filled with hushed conversations as ponies wandered aimlessly from display to display, their reactions mixed, decidedly contemplative. All through the hall, mounted on pristine walls, Tularula's paintings hung in the glow carefully positioned and metered lamplight. A gentle pulse of mantle fires washing over the oily ripples and strokes with the warmth of the canvases that hadn't known it in decades. It made for a startling contrast. Those surreal and twisted paintings set before a bright, curious, and introspective of Canterlot's elite, rather than take on the offense of the juxtaposition. However, many of the visitors seemed to be at least intrigued by the strange and bizarre display. "Excuse me," one older stallion said, striding up to Rarity and peering at her curiosity. "I am correct that you are the sponsor of this exhibition?" "Yes, I am indeed," she replied, smiling brightly at him. She wore a pale blue sweater with a matching beret, and she had toned down the curls in her mane to gentle, shimmering purple waves. "How are you finding the art so far?" "It's, well, curious, to say the least," the stallion said, choosing his words carefully. "If I'm going to be fully honest, though, I'm not sure that I can care for it myself. It really seems like an untouch of unpleasant, practically at this time of year. I was hoping for something a touch more festive." "Well, I could certainly appreciate that. As it happens, though, that's precisely why I chose to sponsor during the holiday season," Rarity explained, following as the stallion moved towards one of the paintings. "There's a larger story told by one of these paintings, and I felt like it would be a good time for ponies to explore it." "A story, you say? And what that might be?" "Well, these works were painted by an artist near the end of their life, and it's my interpretation that she used the fantastic and strange to portray emotions she didn't know how to deal with. Emotions that many of us try to shut down or hide away." Rarity stopped in front of the painting, where the merry-go-round with the rotting words Le Carousel de Temps painted on presided over Renua's fairgrounds. Whatever she knew, what she had been doing was debatable, but I believe she infused these paintings with all despair and hatred and began to trap herself in. The tragedy is that I don't think they brought her any peace. They only served up to amplify her misery, feeding into a self-destructive cycle that ultimately cost her life. "So why display them?" the stallion sniffed, raising an eyebrow at the apocalyptic scene. "Art should be made ponies feel good too, no? It should be inspirational, challenging, encouraging to growth, that sort of thing." "Art can certainly do that," Rarity encountered, "but we cannot deny that anger, frustration, even hatred, and malice are a part from us too. Tularua's legacy showed me that they were easily repulsed by these things, so we shun them and shut them out, and try to pretend that we don't see them. When we do that, however, we lose part of ourselves. This art forces us to acknowledge the things we rather did not exist. Sometimes we need to be led to understand our darker sides and not hide from them." Rarity glanced at him to see if he was tiring of her explanation. He didn't seem to be, so she carried on carefully. "There's a little bit of magic in these paintings, I feel. I think if we can get just a bit better at the understanding of our darker selves, learning to deal with the pain and vehemence over rather than hide it, we'll get much better at understanding others and helping them to work past their own pain. Tularula died alone, but with the help of the others, we can dilute and dispel these darker things. That's what I take from her life anyway. Well, that's such a touch idealistic, but I can appreciate the sentiment. I would argue that such feelings are nothing more than phase and fantasies ponies should learn to control. Emotions don't have an intrinsic power by themselves. Oh, I don't think about that. Rarity looked over her shoulder and smiled as she saw Fluttershy and Pinkie Pie wandered into her gallery. I think things like kindness and lightheartedness have a power of their own. Not all magic comes from spells and incantations. Well, that sounds like a touch idealistic. I can surely appreciate the sentiment. I would argue that such feelings are nothing more than of course, that would be the case. Oh, I don't know about that. Rarity looked over his shoulder and smiled as she saw Fluttershy and Pinkie Pie. Perhaps, the stallion said, also glancing back. Thank you for sharing your feelings with me. I think I can understand why the pieces have a significance to you, at least. A pleasure. Now if you excuse me. She left the stallion to his viewing and walked over to where Pinkie and Fluttershy stood waiting for her. As she walked, she took note of various conversations she passed, but most seemed to share the stallion's confusion about why would anyone want to paint such things. But a part of it seemed to be speculating on the power of paintings that seemed to have stirred up emotions of what could possibly mean. One unicorn mare with a purple coat and a deep violet mane seemed to be giving an improv a lecture on the fantastic period and how deeply flawed the artist's understanding of the movement to have been. Most of the ponies in her group seemed to have been turning her out. Rarity didn't mind. It wasn't up to her how the art was received, or what ponies assumed for her for sponsoring it. It was out there to impact, be forgotten by ponies, however it happened to turn out. Exactly as it should be. Hi, Rarity, Fluttershy said. Are you ready to go? I think so. Rarity turned away and surveyed the room one more time. I'm positively famished. Are you still up to try that restaurant we saw on the way there? You bet, Pinkie said happily. Rarity followed her friends out to the chilly mountain air and shivered, although she smiled as she took in 5 festive streets around her. I do not feel like going back to Ponyville tomorrow, she complained. Canterlot winters are always so divine. After a week here, going back to that old Mare Frost idea of winter is going to kill me. Oh, didn't you not hear? Fluttershy asked. She's retiring. After the 9-day whiteout last year, I guess a lot more ponies have been staying and she fought to step down and let pony else taking over. And she's doing it? Rarity asked incredulous. Thank goodness. I thought she would hold on to these clouds until she froze them. Well, I think she was getting tired of it herself, Fluttershy chuckled. Anyway, they hired one of my old friends from Cloudsdale to take over. She's really nice, and I think she'll want to run things a little more actively than just coating everything in snow all the time. Oh, marvelous, Rarity said, coming to the door brightly lit restaurant and holding it up for her friends. You must simply introduce me to her when she arrives. I'm sure she'll do a splendid job. I am going to murder that weather pony, Rarity groused as she and Pinkie trudged up the muddy hill at the edge of Ponyville's park. Aw, it's not so bad, Pinkie piped up, bouncing effortlessly next to Rarity. Rain and winter can be fun. Freezing rain? Rarity snapped back, giving her the bereft mane another shake. Completely at the random middle of town. If this was Rainbow Dash trying to one-up Horace Frost for winter magic manager, she's off to a terrific start. I'm sure she'll get the hang of it, Pinkie said, looking up to where several Pegasi were filting about, trying some new order to get the rolling angry clouds that stay overhead. At least they got to stop. It's a new town and the weather after all. We'll see, Rarity allowed, walking through the metal low gate and the amongst of the gravestones. There was a slight breeze, and while it chilled Rarity to the bone, the whispering sound made it as it blew through the dread grass and empty branches brought a nice scenery to the place. Any stronger it would have sounded threatening, but it seemed that things were content to calm down now that the storm had faded. A new few rose. Rarity turned to her side and found the stone she was searching for. She placed one of the flower arrangements, and she carried out the base of a large gray stone with a battered dog-eared book cutie mark carved on it. When they walked a few rows further back, amongst the larger, better tended burials, was a small city funded with a plain black grante. Tularula's cutie mark with a brush of lines and a paint swirling out from it. Her initials were carved in to shallow relief. Rarity bent down and arranged a small bundle of flowers she carried in the little vase built into the stone. When she stepped back, nodding slightly in satisfaction. "Do you think she's happy?" Pinky asked. "Now that ponies are talking about her art again, I mean?" "I don't think we'll ever know, Pinky," Rarity said with a sigh. "Even now, I don't think we'll have any idea what she wants to achieve as she was set out to start painting. But it's a different world today than the one she grew up 30 years ago. Ponies are much more appreciative and unconventional art, so I hope this would have given her some joy at least, if she had to live to see it." "Yeah," Pinky said. For a moment, they stood there together, two ponies with their manes gently tossed by the wind around them. Then Pinky asked, "Why are you doing it anyway? I thought you decided those paintings were full of kinds of evil earth pony magic." "That's not exactly," Rarity said, eyeing Pinky skeptically. "I believe she accidentally gave those paintings some kind of power, and that kind of power is based on the negative emotions, yes? So why put them out there?" Pinky asked. "Wouldn't it be better to burn them or something?" "I don't think so," Rarity sighed. "With unicorn magic at least, destroying something bound with magic only destroys the tether and sets power loose. That's how a lot of magical anomalies were created. Actually, but there's more to that." "How so?" "I've come to think of that magic as a flaw. If it's to make us a little too quick, for us to try to obliterate anything negative we came across," Rarity said. "It's very tempting just to look for an instant fix, to destroy something or lock it away when we think we don't have to look at it. And maybe sometimes that's the appropriate response, but I decided it might be possible to take something away painting's powers by putting them out where the pony can see it and work to understand. Some paintings may even be sold and they go back to storage, but I think that would also weaken it." Rarity turned and looked over Ponyville. "I've learned that dark powers are the strongest when we're alone. Tularula made her own loneliness, trapping herself in a cycle of amplifying magic. She took it, poured it in and out, and took it all over again, and it killed her. She lived and died in her very own horror story. I was merely brushed with the aftermath, and you know what that did to me? Now part of her isn't alone anymore." "I hope you're right," Pinky said, "and I hope this all ends with a magic nasty for you." "I don't think it will," Rarity said, smiling sadly at Pinky. "And I don't think it will ever be completely gone." "Why not?" Rarity paused. Pinky waited. Her head tilted curiously as Rarity turned back and looked at their gravestone. "I still see her sometimes. Every now and then, I'll be making something in my room, and the door will open, and then I'll feel her watch me for a little bit, before fading away. Other times I'll be sitting inclined in the mirror, and I'll try to catch a glimpse of her, just at the edge of the glass before she vanishes. She and I are very much alike. We nearly live the same kind of life, but we're different too, and I think she hated me for that. I know I'm not bound to repeat the same mistakes she did." "She isn't there. Isn't there some way to get rid of her completely? Put her to rest or something?" "If there is, I don't know how. I've looked into it a little, but information on this sort of thing is vague and conflicting at the best of times. The most I've been able to piece together is that she isn't really Tularula. Not quite. It's more like an incomplete painting of her. I don't know if it was enough real intelligence to want anything rational or satisfied with anything. But as far as I can tell, we are able to come up with the semblance of total understanding. And all those months ago, in helping the ponies understand what happened to her, giving her the voice back in a way, seems to have weakened the power enough to give us some peace we have now. I'm content with that." "If you are sure," Pinky said skeptically, "I don't know what that could be." That said, however, Rarity turned a little and gave Pinky a long-side glance. "I'm afraid your promise about the boutique still stands. I didn't want any pony getting the idea that there's something off about my shop. At least the thing I need for ponies to start coming to the shop for historic legends instead of dresses. I never said a word about it, Pinky affirmed, and I never will. Thank you, darling. I appreciate it, really, Rarity smiled, but then she shivered and tugged her coat a little closer to around her shoulders. Oh, it's cold. I need to head back. Would you like to pop in for some tea? Thanks, but no thanks. I promised the cakes that I looked after the bakery today. All right, then, Rarity said, heading towards the gate. Thank you for coming with me. I'm sure she appreciates it. Heh, no problemo, Pinky replied with a nervous chuckle. Rarity part ways from Pinky in the park and made her way back home. The market was nearly deserted, thanks to the new feather brain's weaver antics. She fought in a few ponies she met past a little more than friendly greeting. As she turned down the southern road, Carousel Boutique came into view at the bottom of the hill. It would be due for a repainted in a few months. A brilliant white, purple, and gold paint, as she applied, was really beginning to look a touch weathered. A circular windows she had ordered to replace the horrible rectangular ones greeted her warmly, though, and the bright purple doors seemed to beckon her home. As she walked inside, the warm air washed over her. Bright racks of stuffed with custom designs gleamed in the light from the skylights that she had built into the wider sections of the roof. The clean shining mirrors scattered throughout the room amplified the light, and it almost felt like spring inside. As she put her boots off and wandered upstairs, she pondered the next spring lines she would put together. Gemstones were definitely coming back to style, and there was so much she could do with pastels. I'll have to get Fluttershy to model again for me. She was practically made for spring colors. Before she started on her work, however, she walked past a sewing table in her bedroom and over to the trunk set along the wall. She mainly used them for storage, and as she opened one, she dug out several half-finished designs and scraps, laying them aside as she dug deeper and deeper into the trunk. At the very bottom, she carefully folded the mass of black and white cloth, and she lifted out, and she opened it and ironed it out the creases of River Magic. The black dress had been made 10 months ago, hovered in the air, as Princeton when she had first sewed it. Rarity contemplated the dress. Irrationally melancholy swelled up in her as she looked at the old-fashioned collar and veil. She only knew that there was technically nothing wrong with it. Every inch of fabric was perfectly cut and stitched, and it was master replica guided age from a former wear, although it was a modern flair. What was wrong with it that made her feel sad the exact same way the paintings made her feel angry or disgusted? She didn't think she had Tula-Rula power or had transferred her emotions into it. When she made it, rather. She suspected that when she took over the boutique. Whatever power Tula had left behind started to infect Rarity's own art as well. It still brought a chill to her to think of how she began to trap it, and let alone close it, and had come to literally destroying her. But she couldn't bring herself to get rid of the dress either. The things that represented her own, very real feelings of loneliness, fear, and regret all the time, would always be a part of her. She couldn't get rid of the dress anymore, and she could forget about those first few moments at the Carousel Boutique. She had been changed. She suspected Ms. Dog-Ear had brought out one of the mirrors from the gallery and kept it in the library for a similar reason. Rarity often wondered if it was a simple sentiment, or if Miss Dog-Ear had sometimes glimpsed her old friend in the mirror, but the way Rarity occasionally would. If so, Rarity pretty thought she could understand why Miss Dog-Ear would hold on to it, even if it would be better to purge such things from their lives. Rarity wasn't sure it was possible, and so she kept the dress tucked away, where it didn't bother her that much, and on the days she couldn't help but take it out and look at it, she usually made plans to visit with Fluttershy or Pinky as soon as possible to counter its strange power. It's not the ideal, but is there when anything is ever ideal? She mused, folding it up again and piling the rest of the trunk's contents back on top of it. That done, she trotted back to the sewing table, brightly lit by the large oval windows in front of it, and the lit lamp above it for good measure. The incandescent mantles blazed to life as the lines hissed gently. Reaching across the room with her magic, she would wound up the crank on her gramophone and lowered the wrecker onto it, setting the needle down as she gently picked up her quill. She was just about to get to work, however, when she looked down and spotted her parents walking slowly down the road, an unsteady Sweetie Belle toddling up between them. Rarity rolled her eyes and sighed. As long as she lived in the same town as them, they seemed quite content to pop up and unannounced at every other week. Still, winter wrap-up was a ways off, and I can afford her to keep putting off sketch for a little while longer. With a smile and a shake of her head, she shut the lamp off and lifted the lever from the record. Although she didn't bother shutting it off and rotating the drive before returning to downstairs, this time she took several heavy pieces of protective gear, just in case one of her ponies decided that another rouge storm was in order. As she was just about to open, however, she felt a slight prickle at the back of her neck, causing her to look back at the showroom. All she saw was the room filled with fruits of hard work and ambitions. There wasn't even another pony yet to be seen. Yet she just felt like the tiniest breeze had passed by, and a slight hint of envy and longing. When it was gone, the showroom was just a showroom once more. Rarity smiled sadly, and then opened the door and left the room behind her. We only get one turn on this merry-go-round, Rarity thought, smiling and returning the parents' waves as they led Sweetie Belle to the front of the boutique. We shouldn't ride it alone. From upstairs, Rarity and her family could be seen through the window as they made their way towards the park. Rarity picked up Sweetie Belle and swung her about, and her sister giggled and fought for her magic grip. As the sound of her laughter faded, the soft clicking and clacking of the gramophone grew quiet as the spring wound down and the carousel slowed. The record falling, still the spinning came to an end. What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video, and I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Ms. Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, please stay pretty.